Aloha nui kako, Joe Souza here, actually at our sound studio again, sharing about our woods and the different type of woods that we use to build our kanilea ukulele. And really the purpose of our video is to share with you what it is, what tone we can achieve by using the different wood species, and then actually looking at the different combinations and seeing what tone you're really wanting to achieve as a player, as a finger stylist, as a strummer, or whatever tone you're looking for out of your kanilea ukulele. We're gonna shed some light on that subject. So sit back, relax, we're gonna have a lot of fun. How I set up our video is we're gonna look at the woods that we build from, really from the densest or the hardest woods that we build from, all the way to some of the softer woods that we build from. Because as you could imagine, the density of the wood makes a difference in the tone. And really that's what we're looking at. So for our shop, one of the key things that we do is called tap tuning, or what we're doing is listening to the wood. So for example here, our first piece, which is really some of the densest wood that we build from, this is ebony. And this is actually the color of the wood. It's this really dark, beautiful grain. And what we'll do in the shop is, I'll bring it right up to my ear. I'm tapping, and I'm listening to what the tone is gonna be like. And in this case for ebony, it's such a striking dark wood, but it's so dense that the sound that you get from it is really, really punchy, and the notes are really, really clear, which are part of the density or the hardness in the wood that allows us to actually get that tone. Now this piece, and a lot of the first pieces that we talk about, we recommend that they're just used for the back and the sides of the ukulele. So here's a great example of our ebony back and side set. Now as we jump into the next wood piece, this is like the holy grail of tone woods, what people really look forward to. It's that elusive but found Brazilian rosewood. And here we have just the absolute stunning workpiece of Brazilian rosewood. And the grain, the color, the everything, it's got it all for that classic Brazilian rosewood look, but also tone. Now for Brazilian rosewood, it brings some real clear notes because of the density. And honestly, for a finger stylist, this is the perfect tone wood when you combine this with a softer wood top. And what you're gonna be able to do is just create a tone that's pretty classic, but even unique for the ukulele. So here's an example of some beautiful Brazilian rosewood for you to kind of take a look at. Now this is of course gonna be the back of the ukulele, and then here are the sides of the ukulele, but you can see how that color is just so contrast and so beautiful. Such an amazing tone wood. And with all of the rosewoods, generally speaking, we're looking at a very similar tone. So in this case, when we're looking at our East Indian rosewood, now this rosewood comes all the way from Sri Lanka. It comes all the way across the ocean to Hawaii to become this beautiful instrument. And this classic East Indian rosewood is something that builders have been building from for years, including the ukulele builders here in Hawaii. Now this East Indian rosewood is so special not only to smell and look at, but the tone that you're able to get from this instrument. And fortunately, this variety of rosewood can travel between country to country safely. So you're traveling with peace of mind. Next, we actually have some Guatemalan rosewood. And this rosewood actually, many will refer to this particular species as really achieving the same tone that you're able to get from Brazilian rosewood. You get that nice clear notes, of course that classic rosewood back and side combination, which creates the tone that you're really looking for, that bright notes with a lot of warm subtones. Now as we jump into this next rosewood, which is actually a rosewood, it's called Cocobolo. And we have some spectacular pieces of rosewood or Cocobolo that is just stunning. The color, the grain, the contrast in the grain, and the tone that we're able to achieve through Cocobolo in many respects is kind of like one of the shop favorites as far as the tone that we're able to get along with that beautiful look. Next wood that we have to share on is actually Granadillo. And this wood, believe it or not, is not a rosewood, but it has the same characteristics as rosewood, where we look at density and the type of tone that we're able to achieve. So with Granadillo, because it's not a rosewood, many people kind of mistakenly think that the tone is like a rosewood, which is not really a mistake. They're actually spot on. Even though it is, its own species, it creates a tone that's very similar to rosewood. So as we kind of sum up those last work pieces, those are actually the work pieces that really can only become the back and the sides of your ukulele. And we would combine that with another tone wood for the top. And we'll be able to go over that in a little bit later. But most importantly is these are really tried and true tone woods. And that's something I want to touch on, because when you buy a kanilea ukulele, you can have the peace of mind that you're going to get that kanilea sound. But in this case, we're using a separate back and side that's a little out of the wheelhouse for koa, the Hawaiian-made, ukulele preferred tone wood. But you're going to get a tone that's really unique and very special due to that unique combination of woods. So as we kind of step into these next tone woods, these are woods that actually can become the front, the back, and the sides of your instrument. So the next pieces that we have are actually curly maple. And curly maple, in many regards, allows for a really beautiful tone. Very, very clear notes, and really a unique tone when you're comparing them to, say, a guitar or even another ukulele. Because the curly maple is such a clear, bright tone, it has really become so popular today, not just for the ukulele, but even for the guitar. And this curly maple is the back and the sides of a future instrument, but it can become the front, back, and sides, which is really unique. But interestingly enough, there are variations of maple where the tone is very similar to that curly maple, but how the wood is cut, it's designed for specific grain patterns. So tonally we'll get the same tone, but preferably they're not really the best for the soundboard. They're really used for just the back and the sides. So these maple pieces that I wanted to share with you, in this case, this is a quilted maple. And quilting occurs when the wood is cut in a specific way that almost looks like clouds. And that billowing, kind of cloudy curl is because of the way that the wood was cut. Now, for us as instrument builders, we look for this unique grain, but we also recognize that with this unique grain, it's best if we use this particular piece just for the back and the sides. So this quilted maple or cloudy, billowing curl that the instrument will have is so unique and so special to maple. And here, of course, is the sides with that same quilted kind of curl. We also have what's called Birdseye Maple, and we use Birdseye on our Aldrine signature model, which is the rosette on the instrument. But in this case, the Birdseye, which are like these little raindrops that are falling onto the wood, is very special because it's how the wood was cut. If we were to see on this surface, it almost looks like curly maple. But then when we look at this surface, we can see those beautiful bird's eye figure that is on the maple. And again, this particular cut of maple, we would just use it on the back and the sides of the instrument. Now we're going to jump into the Hawaiian maker most spectacular wood for us to build from and for you to enjoy tonally. And that, of course, is koa. So right here, we bought some select koa, which of course, we have it as the front, back, and sides of this instrument. And you can see how koa just has some stunning color, stunning grain, and very beautiful to look at, even as what we call select. But this select piece tonally gives you something that's really perfect in balance, and it's kind of that mix between rosewood and mahogany, which of course gives you great volume, great projection, and sustain, which is what we're looking for when we are trying to really dial in the tone of your instrument. Now this is a front, back, and side, what we call a set. that's ultimately going to become the body of the ukulele. Next, we're going to step into what we call deluxe. And the deluxe pieces, we start to see a little bit more curl or a little bit more figure. So let me open this up so you can get a closer look. This is Deluxe Koa. And you can see the color is spectacular. The grain, of course, is very noticeable, but you start to see that curl, yeah? And it starts to kind of, peek its way out through the wood. Now, a pretty common question people will ask is curly koa like its own species? And in reality, no. Acacia koa is an endemic hardwood only found here in Hawaii. But what makes the different grades look so special is the amount of curl. Curl can happen really on any tree species, not just Acacia koa. But what makes Acacia koa so special, of course, is that curl, and in combination with the color, really makes it stand out and be so beautiful, along with giving beautiful tone. So next we're going to step into what we call premium koa. Now, of course, many of you out there are like, oh, I love premium koa, and so do I. But you can see for yourself, how that color and that real striking curl starts to present itself. And you can see the little variations in the curl, which ultimately creates that shimmer that we're all looking for when it comes to premium curly koa. And this is a front, back, and side set here, which ultimately can become a complete ukulele. Next, we're going to step into what we consider the most beautiful wood in the world, really. And this is master grade koa. So let me open this up for you, and you can see how stunning and striking that grain is and how beautiful it is. With master grade koa, we're looking at 100% of curl, basically curly from top to bottom. The full workpiece is just stunning. There isn't a part that missing any kind of curl. So we're looking at the front, back, and sides of the wood, really being able to touch on all that curly, beautiful grain. And look at that, that's going to become the sides of the ukulele. Just stunning, absolutely stunning curl and grain. So as we kind of jump into these other tone woods now, we're looking at Oregon myrtle. And myrtle is actually from the west coast of the United States. And it too can have that beautiful curly grain. Now with myrtle, we've noticed that tonally it has a great base or low end, and also a really good mid-range, or that kind of sweet spot tonally. And again, this can become the front, the back, and the sides of an instrument, or combined just as the back and sides with another softer tone wood for the top. And here are the sides of this myrtle wood. Next, we're going to jump into some walnut. And walnut, there are different species, but generally speaking, the walnut and the density of walnut is pretty consistent across the board. Another interesting fact is that it's very similar to koa as far as density. So really, in tone, you're going to be getting a very similar sound to what we get with koa. So here's an example of some claro, or some people call it black walnut. And it's because it's such a dark grain. But let me open that up and you can kind of see for yourself that beautiful curly walnut. And again, tonally, it resembles koa in many ways, and it's because the density is very similar to koa. Now, as we kind of jump into the next piece, this is actually English walnut, and this came from the East Coast, which of course the color is slightly different. It's a little lighter in color. The curl is spectacular, and tonally it's very similar to Claro Walnut. Next, we're going to jump into some of the mahoganies that we use. Now for us, we have, what would be considered select mahogany, but we also have like prized pieces of curly mahogany. So I brought one of those along. Now, mahogany, or genuine mahogany, as sometimes you'll hear it kind of called, is really been a tried and true tone wood for many, many years. Guitars and other instruments have been using mahogany, whether it's for the back, the sides, a combination of the front, back, and sides, or even for the neck material, like for our ukulele, all of our necks are made from genuine mahogany. And it's because it's a really stable tone wood, and that's why we use it. But in this case, this is a prized piece of curly genuine mahogany. And you can see for yourself how it has that same, curly chatoyance or figure that comes in with curly mahogany. Tonally now, it's bright, gives a great warm sound, and it's actually a really nice balanced tone when we look at the final tone of the instrument, whether we combine it as an all mahogany or if we combine that mahogany with another spruce or cedar top, we get that nice warm tone. Next is actually a piece of sinker mahogany. Now, this is pretty interesting and a funny story. When we first started working with this wood in the shop, I kind of nicknamed it stinker mahogany because it kind of smells different. But what happened to these pieces is they were sunken either in Belize or in South America, in Honduras, and when they were doing these early loggings of this tropical hardwood, the logs sank. And now we're going back and finding these logs, repurposing them to become a musical instrument. And we're finding that they've been seasoning underwater for years. So this sinker mahogany has now become really, really prized because the tone is very vintage or very seasoned on the finished instrument. And that's what we were looking for as an instrument builder, for that nice warm tone. In this case, it's got great curl, great color, classic genuine mahogany look, but in that sinker format, it's really seasoned and almost has like an old sound, even though the instrument is brand new. Next, we're going to jump into curly mango. Now, mango has become very popular as of recently. And on our wood spectrum, if we can see how we started from ebony and worked from all these different hardwoods, now we're down to kind of one of the softer woods that we work with. And mango is relatively soft in comparison to these other hardwoods. It's still a hard wood. It still takes the wear and tear of playing an instrument really, really well. It just kind of falls a little bit on the softer side of the spectrum. But what we found here with this mango is that it's just spectacular in curl, spectacular in tone even. It gives a nice balanced tone, big sound, a lot of volume, great projection, and still has sustain and warmth and things that we're looking for on a musical instrument. And I think that's why mango has become so popular. So now we're using some Hawaiian mango because it grew here in Hawaii, and we're able to build these beautiful instruments from these gorgeous mango trees. Now, we've just wrapped up everything as far as how we would build an instrument using different tone woods on the body, either the front, back, and sides of the instrument, or just the back and sides on some of those harder tone woods. Now, those back and side combination, we can go ahead and start to step into what we would use for the soundboard or the front of the instrument. So I got a nice example of different tone woods that we build from here. And the first one that I brought along is Sitka Spruce. Now, if you're in the music instrument world, chances are you heard about Sitka Spruce more than once. Even us for a builder, it's what we use for all of the bracing on the inside of our instrument. It's what we use for the soundboards of different ukuleles and different models that we built out through the years. And in this case, this is no different. But you know what's really cool about spruce is sometimes it gives us some really unique facets. And in this case, we can have either straight grain spruce or what's called bear claw spruce. So I brought some of that bear claw spruce so that you can see the difference and also kind of understand a little bit more on what's happening. So this first one is bear claw Sitka Spruce. I'm going to open it up for you and you can kind of see those bear claws, like something is literally clawed at the tree, which in turn is basically curl. It's figure that's happening on these old growth spruce trees. And by doing that bear claw look, and of course book matching that bear claw, it gives some really nice symmetry and character to the grain. So you can kind of see it as you're kind of taking a closer look at the spruce, or in this case, bear claw spruce. Now, tonally, spruce is really known as a kind of tried and true tone wood, gives great volume, great projection, nice balance, and something that from a finger stylist or a strummer, you can find that right tone with Sitka spruce. Now, as we jump into this next piece here, this is actually some Adirondack spruce. Now, Adirondack actually comes from the other side of the United States. Sitka spruce, West Coast, Sitka, Alaska. Here's some Adirondack spruce that's actually coming from the east side, or the Adirondack Mountains. And what makes this spruce so unique is its tight grain, especially for old growth, and it's actually very rigid or very stiff, which in turn for a builder allows us to get the soundboard to be a little bit thinner and get more volume and get more projection out of spruce, or in this case, Adirondack spruce. And it has been a tried and true tone wood and really found on a lot of old pre-war instruments where that combination of rosewood and spruce has really set apart the guitar as far as its tone. For us, as far as ukulele builders, we're looking for that same tone when we're combining that Adirondack spruce with, say, rosewood, you know, getting that nice punchy tone. Next, we have some Lutz Spruce, and I'm going to open it up for you. And Lutz has an interesting story because it's actually from the West Coast. So we're back, you know, in our Washington, Alaska, Canada area, but we're finding these pieces that actually grew on the east side of the Rockies. So it has a tendency to be kind of a hybrid spruce between Sitka and Adirondack. And that hybrid kind of tendency gives it the rigidity that we're looking for, the strength that we're looking for, that tone to say, yet it still has elasticity and the ability to vibrate. So that's where today Lutz Spruce has become really, really popular for musical instrument builders because it gives a very specific tone that's kind of a nice blend between Sitka or classic Sitka spruce and Adirondack or classic Adirondack spruce. This is the Lutz Spruce. Next, we have some Engelmann Spruce. Now, Engelmann is definitely become a great alternative to some of the European spruces. It grows kind of in the same medium, it grows at the same elevation, and in many ways has the same characteristics. In this case, this is actually bear claw Engelmann spruce that really you can see has that beautiful yellow or golden hue, and bringing in all those colors that are very reminiscent of European spruce, which of course our counterparts there are building from the local wood there, for us building woods that's from the continent US. Beautiful tone wood. Actually very hard to get and very, very hard to find. Next, we're going to step into another tone wood that we found to have a very beautiful or unique tone for the ukulele, and this is redwood. And this first example is what we call just classic old growth redwood. And redwood has a very unique tone in itself too. It's actually pretty dynamic in tone and kind of complex with all of its overtones, which ultimately gives it its unique tone for redwood, and beautiful redwood in this case. When we combine that with, say, a walnut or even koa, wow, the tone is just amazing. Now, interestingly enough, for redwood, there's a version that's actually curly. So we have here an example of curly redwood, and although tonally it's very similar to its counterpart regular redwood, to say this now brings this striking and very stunning balance in sound and looks with curly redwood. So you can take a look here on how beautiful that chatoyance is with the curly redwood. Now, very similar to that sinker mahogany, we also have sinker redwood. And that story for this wood is so unique. It too sank to the bottom of the Columbia River in this case, and ultimately been seasoning or basically curing underwater for all those years. Now we're finding these prized old growth logs, bringing them up to the surface and really repurposing them to become a musical instrument. And you can see here on how that grain and kind of mineral deposits that took place in its seasoning process sitting underwater, which in turn makes sinker redwood really rigid and stiff, which is what we're looking for a musical instrument, yet still have elasticity and the ability to vibrate. So sinker redwood has definitely become really prized as far as a tone wood. Next, we're going to step into Western red cedar. Now, cedars are actually a cypress. So interestingly enough, they have an aromatic scent to it. And in this case, Western red cedar is typically found in Oregon, Washington, and Canada. And these particular pieces, as far as tone, is just spectacular. Nice, warm sound, clear, sweet notes, along with just amazing tones when you're either a finger stylus or even if you're just strumming your instrument. You have this great tone that comes from Western red cedar. Now, this is like the latest and greatest. I truly believe we found this wonderful resource it's a Western red cedar, same species, but it's found inland, more in the Alaska regions, higher elevation, and actually more mauka, or more on the mountainside, not along the coast. And this Western red cedar, we've coined the term rainbow cedar, and it's because it has such a unique color and so much color variation. But tonally, it's unbelievable the sound that we're able to get from this rainbow cedar. And it's because their growth lines, or how the tree was growing, is really, really tight. And it's kind of how we grade wood. The tighter the growth lines, the greater the lateral strength. And that's what we're looking for a musical instrument maker. Now we have this wood that's really, really stiff to handle the string tension, but also has great elasticity and the ability to vibrate, because this wood is actually really, really light. And that's what we're looking for from a musical instrument maker's point of view. Something that has strength and light, or this strength to weight ratio. So here is beautiful rainbow cedar from Alaska. Now finally, we have some Port Orford cedar, which is actually kind of interesting because it's a cypress also. And Port Orford cedar, you can see, has beautiful, striking colors, really, really tight growth lines is what we're looking for, and honestly has a superb sound. It's right in that family of cedar woods, which you'll find a lot on nylon string guitars. Hence, nylon string ukulele, perfect tone wood for us as ukulele builders. And we found that this Port Orford cedar gives a nice warm tone, very balanced, but still great volume, great projection, everything that we're looking for from a musical instrument maker's point of view. Now that was the final of the most kind of conventional tone woods that we build from. We're gonna just tickle a little bit on this new kind of combination of tone woods and how this wood has become this tone wood. Had an interesting journey. This is actually some of that Alaskan rainbow cedar that I talked about a little earlier. Like it's this beautiful tone that we're able to get from, but it goes through a process. And that process is called torrefaction, or torrefied cedar in this case, has a unique characteristics. It's what really happened to the wood that creates these characteristics. So this particular piece goes into a very unique kind of oven, if you could imagine. But this oven is going to help dry the wood uniquely to a point where it reduces its moisture completely to zero, like zero moisture in the wood. And the only way that we're able to do that is by heating the wood removing the oxygen from the oven, so basically removing one of the fire components that are in creating fire. But by reducing the oxygen or eliminating oxygen, we're able to get the temperature to the right temperature to allow the wood to season and actually resemble on a molecular level how old tone wood would be. And now we're able to recreate this old vintage sound basically through the torrefication process. Now this is definitely one of Kanile'a's beautiful tone woods that we found, that we've kind of unveiled as this torrefied cedar. And the torrefied cedar, of course, has great strength, great lateral strength, amazing elasticity, but more importantly, gives the instrument kind of an old vintage tone. You can even see the instrument wood looks kind of patinaed, to say, as if it was 50 years old. So many players will say, wow, even though this is a brand new instrument, it sounds like the instrument is 50 years old. And it's because what we did with the wood in preparation to becoming a musical instrument and really changing it on a molecular level to create the tone or the sound that we're wanting from this particular workpiece. So this torrefied cedar, I can already see the future is gonna become an amazing sounding ukulele. Promise you. So now that we've kind of summed up all of the different tone woods and we got a chance to see all the way from those dense, hard ebonies and rosewoods to these softer cedars and spruces, what does that combination look like? What would be some of the Kanile'a favorites as far as combinations that we've built from over the years? Now, personally, I have a favorite, and I promise you, if you walked into the room and said, hey Joe, what would be the best set of tone woods that you would want to build from? I would say, you have to wait, because I'm going to share a little bit about the other favorites that we have. I know that my oldest son, Kaimana, he says, you know what, my favorite is rosewood with a cedar top. And to him, tonally, that's the best sound. But imagine this, tone is very much like taste. You know, some people like spicy, some people like sweet, savory. Same thing with tone. Some people like loud, volume, projection, whereas others may want warmth, sustain, and some of the other complexities that comes with tone. So putting together that combination, it could be a maple with a spruce top. That maple spruce is like a really classic finger style, clear notes. It got punch. When you dive in, it got volume, but it brings that clarity of the note that you're really looking for. Or even say a koa back inside, and then combining that maybe with a redwood, because that tone is just so unique, it's so special. It's warm, it's clear, it's got everything that you're looking for, and it's just like nails it. Now if you walked in and said, Joe, what is your favorite tone wood? I mean, initially I would say all of them, you know, but really, when we look at koa, koa is a tried and true tone wood. It is an absolutely beautiful tone wood. And if we do a koa back inside, maybe a darker koa back inside, or maybe even a walnut back inside, with a cedar top, torrefied cedar top, I promise you, the tone is like unbelievable. Volume, projection, warmth, complexities. Now, it may have a little bit more mellower tone, to say, in comparison to a maple with an Adirondack spruce top, but I promise you that tone will be so unique and so special that to me, it speaks to me. When we build an instrument with that combination, unbelievable tone. So to kind of wrap everything all into one package, I hope that you enjoyed some insight to the different types of tone woods that we build from, and in many respects, the different types of tone woods that have been kind of tried and true in the musical instrument world. As a builder, we're so fortunate to be able to work with all of these tone woods. And you know, a lot of these tone woods are what is called fall-offs, meaning they were intended to become a guitar. It didn't make it to a guitar, but now has made it to one of our ukuleles. And I see that as a win-win. You know, this may have been considered no good in a guitar shop, but as far as it's not rubbish, it's actually prized tone woods. We can build from those prized tone woods, which then to me opens up this wonderful world of tone to the little ukulele builder sitting here in the middle of the Pacific, who honestly would have never known about torrefied cedar unless we worked with our friends there in the guitar industry to ultimately allow these workpieces life and to be able to be part of our ukulele. So I welcome you to visit us. If you're here in Hawaii, please don't hesitate. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave us a comment right there. And if you like what you've just seen, subscribe to our channel because we're going to have more of these videos. And if you really liked it, smash that like button. Go ahead, send us your comments. We love you guys. We appreciate you taking time to get some insight to what we do. And we really appreciate you showing interest in what we do as Kanilea Ukulele. So take care, stay safe, and mahalo.